Okay, this is Lee Odden from TopRankBlog.com, and oh look, it's Brian Clark from Copyblogger.com.
Imagine your shock.
Imagine that. We're at OpenCamp in Dallas, Texas, and Brian is going to be giving a presentation very shortly about copywriting and blogging. So I was hoping, Brian, you'd give us a little preview.
Yeah, so basically it's kind of a basic presentation about, what exactly does copywriting, which is historically been about advertising, have to do with blogging. And it's really an intersection of I think, a mindset that people need to have, which is, people go, well, I got to create content so I can get traffic, when really that's kind of where people get stalled out because they don't know what they're trying to achieve, which is, what's your goal? What's the action you want people to take? What's the response you're looking for? And when you take a copywriting mindset, not only are you more persuasive and you attract more attention, because that's what copywriting is really about, you understand what it is you're trying to achieve every time you write a post or put together a video or record an audio. Begin with the end in mind. What are you trying to achieve? And that's really the substance of my talk, and whether we have beginners or more advanced people there, it's really about how to think about creating content as opposed to boil down tactics and strategy.
Right. And as a conference focused on WordPress, Drupal, Joomla, and .NET, one could anticipate there's a lot of developers here making social platforms, making blogs work, also being tasked with some content creation. And so it seems that maybe this notion of planned content creation, like you're talking about, might be a new thing, right?
Well, and there's so many details when you get down into platforms like WordPress versus Drupal, or just all the minutiae that we all have to deal with, that I think people often they lose sight in the technology about what it is they're really doing here. And it's really simple, actually, but it's so easy to forget. So again, I'm just trying to get people to ground themselves back in reality. What am I trying to do here? And then they can go off to the next session and find out how to widgetize their sidebar.
Right. So in terms of content planning, what are some sources of inspiration? Say I have a blog that's about cats, and if it's a personal blog, then I'm just going to pontificate about whatever I think about cats. But if we have a commercial purpose, what advice do you give to people when trying to connect them with the content they're creating and the purpose of the business? People, that seems to be a mental leap sometimes in arriving at what they're going to be writing about.
Well, you have to realize that even though we're in new media, there's really an entire media landscape, and I really kind of laugh when people kind of make fun of old media. Old media has gotten this right for a long time. They may not be quite sure what to do with what we're doing, but they're figuring it out. So if you're in any commercial area, any commercial niche, or niche, as we say here in Texas, there's probably a magazine out there that's doing it right. Look around. Look at all sources. Don't just look at your fellow bloggers, because they may not know what they're doing any more than you do. We're all kind of making this up as we go along to a certain degree, but there's a lot of guidance you can get by seeing how so-called old models actually worked, because they were very good at editorial focus leading to money.
Right. And that's, the whole notion of brands as publishers is becoming quite popular as companies start to understand the value of creating content and almost, sidestepping traditional media in some places, or augmenting their media relations effort at getting covered in traditional media, plus having great, robust and engaging content on their own sites.
Right, and what I like to say is that every company is a media company now, and you have to think that way. So, there is what you do to make money, but then there's got to be a media component, and it can't just be pitching what it is you sell. That's not going to work. You've got to think like a trade magazine for your customers, or an entertaining program. Look at cable networks are great for this, like Home and Garden Channel for real estate professionals. All those different shows that you never would have thought would have made it on TV are ideas that a real estate professional, or it goes on and on. But that's another good source. I always tell people to go back to old media and look around, because they're creating these niche, demographic missiles, if you will. They're very narrowly aimed at a certain group of people who can make them money, and that's exactly what you're trying to do.
Yep. And where does search or SEO and keywords fit, in your opinion, with the content planning and creation process?
Well, I mean, it's unless you don't like getting targeted traffic from people who are specifically looking for what you have to offer, I mean, then it's not important at all. But it's always been a big component of what we do. We don't worry about optimizing every post. We're more interested in communicating with the audience that we have day to day. But when we want to rank for something, we're pretty focused on it, and there's good strategies there. And the great thing is that this kind of educational, entertaining content that teaches people something attracts links, and it ranks well. If you, it's not as complicated as some people think, but it does require work and focus. I mean, you have to try.
Okay. Last question. Someone you met that's got a great idea and they want to start a blog, what first tip would you give them?
Think like a media publication. Don't think I'm a blogger or this or that. What does that mean? It doesn't mean anything. You are in the media business, and you got to take it seriously like that. So that means you have to understand what you're going to offer people. You have to understand where you're trying to go, and you have to really know what it is you're trying to achieve. And if you do that, that's basically what we could call an editorial focus in the publishing industry. Mm-hmm. But it shows you what you have to deliver in order to achieve your goal. And that's not a week or month process. That you've got to be in it for the long haul.
It's ongoing.
So start thinking 6 months down the road. Start thinking about 6 months is basically my window, because anything longer than that in this space, everything changes. So, yeah. But it's a healthy planning period.
Okay, great. So, Brian, where would you like people to connect with you or find you on the interwebs?
Well, copyblogger.com is pretty much the flagship around where all our little satellites, orbit. Yeah. So stop by Copyblogger. We talk about this stuff day in and day out, and it's all free.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot, Brian.